There will be no breakthrough. The Ukrainian armed forces have pinned down the occupiers on all fronts. The front is impenetrable. Everything is falling apart for Putin. Minus one locomotive, the Ukrainian armed forces are blowing up the enemy's logistics. Fake news on the air. Russia lies about victories, but in reality is burying battalions. Explosive details coming up in the report.
Hundreds of occupiers killed and hundreds more brought in from Russian reserves to replace them. The meat grinder on the Pokrovsk direction continues, remaining the hottest spot on the front for over a month now.
The enemy force that attacked Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022 consisted of 160,000 troops along a 1,500-kilometer front. Essentially, in here, on less than 100 kilometers of the front, the enemy has concentrated a force of over 100,000.
The Kremlin's main objective here is to break through our defensive line and split the front into two separate directions, Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka. They don't care about losses, but since the 1st of July, the occupiers haven't advanced a single meter here.
As for Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka, it's clear that the enemy has broken through or is trying to break through more specifically into the bridgeheads near Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka in order to split them into two separate bridgeheads and first of all to outflank Pokrovsk. This will already be the third attempt to launch flanking attacks on Pokrovsk and accordingly to advance to try to move in the direction of Kostiantynivka. These are indeed the directions that are currently the most difficult, where the enemy is showing the greatest activity.
At the same time, attacking Kostiantynivka from the direction of Toretsk, the Russian forces even decided to use heavy armored vehicles, which is a rarity for them these days. Two tanks with infantry tried to gain a foothold, but they were met with a worthy resistance. As a result, the 28th Brigade reported the destruction of one of the tanks, the second tank was set on fire and disabled. The infantry was eliminated. After a period of relative calm, the Sumy direction has also become more active. According to reports from our State Border Guard Service, the enemy is actively trying to regain lost positions here and is attempting to launch an offensive on Sumy for the fourth time. By concentrating elite units, Russia still hopes to break through the front here, but according to command reports, they have not achieved any success. And this is due in no small part to the fact that the Ukrainian armed forces managed to hold their ground in the Kursk region.
This is a buffer zone. Today, of course, it has shrunk many times over, and now it consists of the commanding heights along the border. But what is the result? The result is that we have indeed managed and continue to manage to hold back those reserves that quite possibly could have ended up, say, on the Pokrovsk or Zaporizhzhia directions as early as yesterday. It is clear that the enemy is already losing momentum. The enemy is no longer keeping to the schedules that obviously they once had.
Zaporizhzhia is also becoming a more active direction for Russian attacks, according to the command. Russia has redeployed 2 regiments of its troops there at once, reports the 118th Brigade, which is holding the defense in this area. There is also evidence of the use of equipment and heavy artillery, which, however, is not yielding any results.
We are talking about Huliaipol, we are talking about the Orikhiv direction. If we talk about the Huliaipol direction, for example, over the past day, the situation has not changed drastically. That is, there were no active enemy actions, which in turn indicates that indeed regrouping and rotation of personnel are taking place. The enemy is indeed trying to move its assault groups closer to the line of contact. Their numbers have not changed, 3 to 4 people. They are trying to move forward. Next comes an attempt to build up forces. Accordingly, when there is a build-up, the activity of both tube artillery as support and aviation also increases.
At the same time, as often happens, victory in the Russian media comes much faster than in reality, which often is never achieved at all. So all of Russia's successes remain only in Putin's reports and news stories.
We see that the enemy is trying to attack, and on top of that is once again accompanying all their actions with loud cries of victory in the information space. It has been claimed in particular that the Russians have occupied the settlement of Lapkovo, which does not correspond to reality. The gray zone may be expanding in these locations, that's obvious, but there is no sign of the enemy consolidating their position there today.
But Ukraine's achievements are quite real. For example, in the Zaporizhia direction, the defense forces, after waiting for Russia to patch up the railway after recent strikes, decided not to abandon such a successful tactic and destroyed another Russian locomotive.
Another enemy train on the temporarily occupied territory of Zaporizhia region, as they say, was derailed. It was a freight train carrying fuel and lubricants, and in fact the Russians had just finished repairing this railway track after the previous strike. Well, now they'll have to fix their logistics again.
Experts from the New York Times try to analyze why Russia has intensified its actions along the entire front line. According to their data, Putin believes he can break through the Ukrainian line of defense within a couple of months and achieve victory this year.
This version itself seems logical and explains a lot. Why does Putin keep throwing so many people into the fight, ruining relations with Trump, not using this chance, sending more and more new troops into battle, living as if everything will end tomorrow? He truly believes that within a few days, well, months, he'll break through the front, and that an offensive will start somewhere. Where exactly? It seems to me that they don't even have a clear plan or understanding. They want to go for Sumy, they want to go for Kharkiv region, they want Kupiansk, they really want Donetsk region, and they really want Zaporizhia. Everywhere. But so far, there haven't been any real successes, so they're pushing everywhere like water pressing against the sides of a jar, looking for a crack to seep through wherever they find one. That's where they'll break through.
And with this kind of tactic, huge losses are inevitable. The Economist writes that the summer offensive of 2025 has already become the deadliest for Russia out of all stages of the war.
Do you know how much they valued the life of one Russian? That's actually quite a decent amount. 3,800 square meters of Ukrainian land. So they divided the number of those who died ingloriously by the amount of territory captured. And it turned out one Russian dies for 3,800 square meters of someone else's land.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
As of today, Russian losses have already exceeded 1,030,000 people. Moscow remains silent. However, inside Russia, they claim they are preparing to accept 1 million labor migrants from India. Coincidence? I don't think so.
A meat grinder of their own making. A hellish order to wipe them out. In the Russian army, they're hunting their own. Meat assaults. Commanders are getting rid of inconvenient soldiers. Total madness. Russians are shooting at each other. War correspondents are in a panic. The losses are off the charts.
This is the Russian soldier Mark, and most likely he is no longer alive. Mark's military command is to blame for this. They deliberately sent him on a meat assault. They want to wipe me out. They send me, there's an order from above. There's a personnel chief with a call sign Tatarin in the 9th Brigade. He got a personal call from the local guy who asked what's the status on him. He replied, there's an order from above to wipe him out. That's it? I'm asking for this to be investigated. When I'm gone, this video will surface. If you're already watching this video, that means I'm no longer alive. Or they report me as missing in action. Despite a serious leg injury and a metal plate implanted in Mark's limb, he was transferred to an assault brigade and demoted. There was an order from above to wipe him out. Tomorrow they're taking me to the front line, and all the local guys here said that the order for you is a one-way ticket. No one is going to pull you out. They'll wipe you out there. Even if you get wounded by the enemy, no one will come to get you out. The Russian soldier repeatedly appealed to every possible authority, including the military prosecutor's office and the investigative committee. He openly stated that they were trying to wipe him out. In response, he was told that reviewing his appeal would take up to 10 days. Russian servicemen have been killing their own since the first year of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Wiping out or the practice of extrajudicial punishment is used in many units of the Russian army. Threats to wipe out are not about direct murder, but about sending soldiers into meat grinder assaults from which few return. Goodwin and Ernest are the most well-known Russian soldiers who met the fate of being wiped out. Before their deaths, they published a video message in which they accused their commander, call sign Zloy, of drug trafficking.
They're dealing drugs, and of course, all the command gets a cut from at least the higher ups, right? That's it. And since we don't participate in this in any way and actively oppose it, our main task right now is to survive, while their main task is to make sure we don't, because we have enough information on this topic about who, what, where, and how.
They were transferred from long-range reconnaissance to an assault unit and sent on a deliberately impossible mission where the servicemen were killed. The situation with sending dissenters to be zeroed out has become so widespread that even Russian war correspondents have started talking about it.
We have massive losses, we have meat grinder assaults, and people like Ernest and Goodwin are being sent en masse to be zeroed out. It's just that their story came to light. But how many more unknown groups like them have perished without even recording a video? And this is truly a problem, because they're offering absolutely insane amounts of money for contracts, but people still aren't signing up.
You can end up in a meat grinder assault because of alcohol, drugs, stealing from fellow soldiers, or if mobilized troops refuse to sign a contract. Almost every day, the media reports on the use of zeroing out to cover up crimes, corruption, violence, and the sale of humanitarian aid. A former Russian soldier from the 30th of September 8 Guards Motor Rifle Brigade says that any move against the commanders could end fatally.
The closer you are to the front line, the fewer rules there are and the more lawlessness prevails. For any major screw-up, you could be zeroed out. There are no laws there. When we were running through the Grove, there were two people with us. One of them was a drug addict, the other had just come from the hospital, his lung was punctured. They could barely run, lagging at the very end and slowing down the whole column. The escort stopped and ran at the back. As soon as we entered the city, I heard two shots behind us. Then the escort caught up with us and said that those two had gotten lost somewhere. I never saw them again.
Often comrades finish off the wounded. There are two scenarios here. The first is the threat of being zeroed out. If soldiers try to evacuate the wounded or dead from the battlefield, the commander threatens to shoot anyone who helps a wounded comrade. In the second case, they are ordered to finish off the wounded so they don't have to evacuate them. Commanders deliberately withhold orders to evacuate soldiers and instead drive them forward to certain death. They also get rid of their own for selfish reasons, in order to claim the compensation for the dead. Warrant Officer Alexander Polishchuk and accountant Natalia Sudareva from the 60th Motorized Rifle Brigade recruited single men for contract service, then persuaded them to marry women who were in on the scheme. As soon as the newlywed wives gained access to the soldiers' bank accounts, the men were eliminated. The women became widows 2 or 3 times a year. They split the money from signing bonuses and funeral payouts among themselves. Wiping someone out in the Russian army is a common practice either for profit, to get rid of dissenters, or simply to avoid leaving a severely wounded soldier alive so they won't have to pay disability benefits later. But despite the horror of a system that shows no mercy to its soldiers, the number of Russians willing to go to die in Ukraine has not decreased in the Russian army.
Fico is blackmailing Europe. Moscow is rejoicing. The EU is in shock. Sanctions don't apply to Putin's friends. Europe is on the verge of division. But money decides everything. How much does friendship against Russia cost? And why is there no unity in Europe? Stay tuned.
Slovak Prime Minister Fico is demanding compensation from the European Union in order to unblock the new package of sanctions against Russia.
We want to reach an agreement. Until then, we will not support either the 18th package of sanctions or any other. Until we have something concrete on the table, a proposal that is acceptable, why the hell should we pay more because of Ukraine? It's all because of Ukraine. I'm sorry there's a war going on there, but I didn't start this war.
Fico explains this by saying that Slovakia will suffer huge losses due to giving up Russian gas.
We have a contract with Gazprom until 2034. If we pass a legislative act to terminate it in the event that the European Union stops buying Russian gas, then Russia and Gazprom will have the legal right to sue Slovakia over the fulfillment of the contract because it is based on the take or pay principle and its value is 16 billion euros.
Such penalties imposed through the courts could be, if not catastrophic, then at least very politically painful for Fico himself. It would simply be a perfect opportunity for the opposition, which would criticize Fico's policy.
According to the Slovak Prime Minister, other European countries are putting strong pressure on him, particularly German Chancellor Merkel.
We are preparing package number 18 as part of the European Union's sanctions against Russia. Only one member state is missing one that would agree to this. I strongly urge Slovakia and its Prime Minister to stop resisting and clear the way for the adoption of the package.
But we see that now, at this very moment, when the issue becomes critical, for example, regarding transit restrictions or the 18 sanctions package, Brussels has enough arguments, primarily financial ones, of course, to keep, let's say, Fico's multi-vector approach from Slovakia under control.
In Europe, Fico is called a Putin agent because for some reason when it comes to the interests of the European Union, he very often takes the Kremlin side.
Russia indeed had very serious and legitimate security concerns to act in this particular way, especially since it had been consistently misled for a considerably long period of time regarding the significant expansion of NATO. The conflict could have been stopped soon after it began. The vast majority of European Union member states, with the exception of Slovakia and Hungary, supported the idea that the war in Ukraine should be used to politically and economically weaken Russia.
He, in fact, primarily and above all spoke about a peaceful settlement regarding Ukraine. That's exactly what he was, as they say, pushing for it and fully supporting it. So here, I don't really know what kind of complaints Europe or anyone else could have against him.
Everyone understands the security risks coming from the Russian Federation and Putin. Countries of Eastern Europe understand this, especially well after World War II. This is absolutely obvious, but situational political priorities become significantly more, let's say, more immediately relevant. They clearly and decisively outweigh any kind of overarching strategic vision or long-term planning.
For example, in winter, after Russian shelling, Fico threatened Ukraine with a blackout.
Who cares about some Slovakia, right, Mr. Zelensky? But when you need something so you don't freeze in winter, you shout at the top of your lungs. If necessary, we will stop supplying electricity, which is extremely important for Ukraine during outages.
And in May, he flew to Russia's victory-obsessed gathering at Putin's personal invitation.
We mutually agreed that the government, under your esteemed leadership, would diligently make concerted efforts to fully restore comprehensive bilateral cooperation between our respective nations. Essentially, that is your position. Of course, we support this, and for our part, we'll do everything we can in this direction. We have always maintained relations with Slovakia as a friendly state, acting on the principles of respect and consideration for each other's interests.
But according to experts, if Fico's financial interests are satisfied, he will be able to turn a blind eye to friendship with Russia for a while.
The European Union, of course, will lend a helping hand to Slovakia, will support Fico, both by replacing some of the energy resources that used to come from Russian transit and, let's say, by balancing the price. He will be quite satisfied, as I mentioned earlier, that Europe will indeed meet him halfway, specifically regarding his economic concerns, which could otherwise result in political instability for him and for Slovakia.
The only thing the Slovak Prime Minister should not forget is that when you put money above morality and common sense, it never ends well.
That's all for now. And for more breaking news from the front, tune in to our next episode.